Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Happy Halloween! I always want to do a video or something commemorating the holiday because it is one of my favorites, and I figured this was the perfect opportunity to do so. Also, because I haven't talked about one of these in a while. As you can see from the title, I am going to talk about my favorite Big Finish. And it's interesting because it's not a Doctor Who, but it's interesting because if you were to ask me what my favorite Doctor Who audio is, I couldn't tell you. Like, I have heard so much Doctor Who that it is very difficult to narrow it down. Like, the most I could give you is I know my favorite story for each Doctor. And yet, I know what my favorite Big Finish is across any series, any range within that series, in the entire Big Finish catalog. Yeah, this is my favorite. So today we are going to talk about Dark Shadows Bloodline. Originally released between April 2019 to May 2019 in installments of 13 episodes, Bloodline was written by Aaron Lamont, Will Howells, Alan Flanagan, and Rob Morris, and was directed by Ursula Burton, David Darlington, and Joseph Lidster. As always, there is a blanket spoiler warning in place because I do these unscripted. If you do not wish to be spoiled, in the description box below is the link to Big Finish's website where you can purchase Dark Shadows Bloodline. You can get it one of two ways. You can either buy the individual episodes or you can buy them into collected volumes. Volume 1 being episodes 1 through 6 and Volume 2 being episodes 7 through 13. I am only, for the sake of not cluttering up my description box and, because there's character limits, I'm only going to link to the collected volumes. And, just where to start with this, because there's a lot to talk, because there is a lot going on here. And, just like I said, this is my favorite Big Finish audio. I love it so much. But at 13 episodes, I am not going to get to cover everything. There are things I'm going to either forget to talk about or miss intentionally so that we are not here all night. I guess background would be the best place to start. Bloodline is Big Finish's fourth Dark Shadows miniseries. You can roughly divide the Dark Shadows audios into three different ranges. We have audiobooks, pretty self-explanatory, narrated audiobooks, usually sold in sets of 4. I've only heard a couple of them, so I can't really speak to them. Then we have dramatized readings, which are the bulk of Big Finish's Dark Shadows audios. They are essentially two-person plays. Think of them like the companion chronicles from Doctor Who. It's two-person plays, usually with the premise that a character is recounting a story to another character, and that other character is usually playing another role in that story as well. In the past, I've reviewed a couple digital bundles collecting Dark Shadows audios. I've reviewed the Horror Collection and the Quentin Collins Collection. All of the audios in those bundles come from the dramatized reading range. And the third is their mini-series. These are full casts telling a story on a larger scale. And like I said, this is the fourth one. I guess if you want, you can kind of look at it as seasons. Season 1 was individual audios. I don't think they had a name themselves, but if you've ever seen the Big Finish trailer, which plays at the end of every Dark Shadows DVD, if you have the DVD set, you could call Season 1 A Legend Reborn, which is also the name of the stupid glare behind-the-scenes documentary, the only behind-the-scenes stuff Big Finish has ever done for Dark Shadows. Season 2 was Kingdom of the Dead. Season 3 was Bloodlust. Big Finish recommends Bloodlust if you're entirely new to Dark Shadows. I'm a little bit more hesitant to do so for reasons I will not get to here. And Season 4 is Bloodline, at the moment the most recent one. Big Finish has announced Seasons 5 and 6. Season 5 is called Wyncliffe. Season 6 is called 13. But at the moment there is no news. Wycliffe was originally supposed to release in 2020, but has been continually delayed. At the moment, on the Big Finish podcast or in Big Finish's magazine, Big Finish Insider, all Nicholas Briggs has said is that it is being worked on. So, for the moment, the Dark Shadows Big Finish stuff is in development hell. Bloodline was the most recent release. So the plot, and again, I am not going to go over everything. 13 episodes, there's a lot that happens. I'm not going to remember to go over everything. The plot is that all of Collinsport is getting ready for the wedding of David Collins and Amy Jennings. But as always, with the Collins family, there is something strange going on, and it seems someone has a grudge against the family. Now, I want to stop a little bit just to talk about the collected volumes. Again, Volume 1 being episodes 1 through 6, and Volume 2 being episodes 7 through 13. I really like the way they're collected because when episode 6 ends, roughly the halfway point, the trajectory of the entire series changes. You could almost look at it as two sort of different series within the larger miniseries. I don't know how to phrase it beyond that. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. But you have all this build up to Amy and David's wedding, and then in episode 6, the wedding happens, and then we get a big twist, and then episodes 7 through 13 are the ramifications of that twist. I like the back half of Bloodline more than the front half. This is the only critique I have about Bloodline. The front half seems a little unfocused. There is a lot going on with a bunch of characters. There are multiple subplots, some that get resolved pretty quickly, some that do carry through the end of the series. But I do think the back half is much more focused on this bigger story. So what is going on? Because I do have to spoil this because this is a huge part of the story, and it's one of the things I absolutely have to praise. The writing for Bloodline is fantastic, and that is so perfectly executed in its big twist in episode 6. So after everything has happened, in episode 6, Amy and David finally have their wedding. And just as the ceremony is about to end, David suddenly vanishes in front of everyone's eyes. And then, when everyone notices the programs, the wedding of David Collins and Amy Jennings, everyone asks, who is David Collins? And that is when the genius of this twist plays out, because then you start to realize, wait a minute, where is Amy's son, Tom Cunningham? Wouldn't he have to be in this wedding? Wait, where is Harry Cunningham and Cody Hill's friend Jackie Tate? She sort of integrated herself into the Collins family. She'd want to be there for her friends and see this wedding. Where's Quentin's wife, Leela? And then David disappears, and then it clicks. This story has geniusly made you part of it. Because they forget about people once they everyone has forgotten about people once they disappear. No one has realized that these people have disappeared. And because no one was talking about them or bringing them up, you as a listener have forgotten about them. And it's just so genius how it's done. Like I said, there's not much more to that. I think I'm just coming up to this point now too. I think the reason the first half is so, for lack of a better word, unfocused, like I said, is because it's setting up stuff for future audios to do. Like Sabrina and Cyrus Longworth Jennings return to Collinsport. Collinwood is the mansion, Collinsport is the town. Amy's friends, Sabrina and Cyrus, return to Collinsport. By the end of the audio, they will take over the Collinsport Inn, and they have their own baggage they're bringing to town. Burke Devlin comes back, which that was fascinating. In the series, the TV show itself, Burke Devlin is kind of the first major antagonist of the show, in one way of looking at it. And then, right after Barnabas is introduced, Burke kind of leaves the series and he's killed on screen. And then finally, after all these years, he's brought back in the series, in the audio, which I reviewed and read all over, where he was played by Mitchell Ryan. And then I don't know what happened. It might have been health. It might have been scheduling. Here he's been recast to be played by Adam Hall, which is interesting. I'm gonna wildly speculate here. I believe, because Burke doesn't really play a major role in Bloodline, he shows up to Collinsport with Maggie Evans, and they're here to attend Amy and David's wedding. And after David disappears, they leave. But I'm going to speculate wildly. The reason Big Finish brought back Burke is, I predict, they're going to bring back Victoria Winters. Like, some of the dialogue in And Read All Over, as well as some of the dialogue here, kind of hints that the great love of Burke's life was Victoria Winters. You know, why would you bring him back and recast him into an actor who can play him a little more regularly if you're not planning to do that? That's just my prediction. We'll see what happens, especially given the development hell status of Dark Shadows at Big Finish. That's something I wanted to say. But yeah, so someone is targeting the Collins family. And when volume 2 picks up, you know, we find out what's happened. The members of the family, the people who have disappeared, are being displaced throughout history. And, you know, they have to find a way to pick up and resume their lives for fear that they will never be rescued. We get some interesting subplots here. Tom's is probably my favorite because, well, it's one of the most developed. Tom's is really good. Jackie's is really good. Leela's is fun. Leela's isn't the most interesting or developed, but it's just a lot of fun. Susan Sullivan and Jerry Lacey are obviously having a ball in their little tete-a-tetes. But then as they go on, they just become less and less interesting, probably because there is less and less time that can be devoted to them. Like, we don't get the full story on Cyrus's, and I imagine if you've heard previous audios or are familiar with the series, what's going on is a little more interesting. But that's obviously not the focus. The focus is the remaining people trying to figure out what's going on, who's targeting the family, why, and how to stop it before they disappear as well. Which leads to this phenomenal conclusion. Like, episode 13 is the highlight of this miniseries. Episode 13 is really good. I really like episode 10. Which one was the one with the hospital fire? I think that was episode 5, maybe? Episode 4 or 5. That one was really good as well. But yeah, it's very strong writing, really great characters, really strong plots, all building up to this absolutely phenomenal conclusion. And I'm going to stop there for just a moment because I'm going to talk about what Bloodline is ultimately building up to. But before we do, I want to talk performances. As a soap opera and as a miniseries, Bloodline has an absolutely stacked cast, all of who are bringing great performances here. I can't talk about everyone, of course, but there are a few people I do want to single out as I think giving some of the strongest performances in this series. First, we have Stephanie Ellen as Amy Jennings, who really gets to shine in the back half because as these people are disappearing, the effects they had on people's lives are no longer taking place. Like, Quentin brings it up at one point. He says he knows he's a good man, but he can feel himself turning back into the person he used to be because the people who influenced the changes in his life aren't there anymore. And we get a similar scene of that with Amy, who, you know, is becoming very bitter and angry at the Collins family because of what's happening. There are these people dear to her who have disappeared, and she can't remember who they are. Stephanie Ellen is also playing a dual role here. She is also playing Quentin's mother, Anna Collins. In his plotline, when David disappeared, he showed up. I don't remember the year he showed up, but he showed up in the time of Quentin's parents while Anna was pregnant with Quentin. And Stephanie Ellen is honestly kind of creepy in this plot line because Anna sort of develops this obsession with David. It's really unsettling and really undone. Next, we have Lachelle Carl as Rhonda Tate, the sheriff of Collinsport. Again, she's decent in the first half. You know, she's kind of really just playing the same role she played in Bloodline, the sort of no-nonsense sheriff who also has to be a mother because she's Jackie's mother. But then we get to the back half. And first, we get this really just brutal scene where Rhonda finally goes home for the first time. And she sees all these photos of her and Jackie. And of course, she doesn't know who Jackie is. And it terrifies her. And as it goes on, she begins to suspect the Collins family is responsible. So she herself goes to kill Barnabas and plays a key role in the climax in the final episode. And which brings us to Andrew Collins as Barnabas Collins. Again, just really good performance all around. He has this really strong plot line about the fact that, once again, he's trying to find a cure for his vampirism, among other things, which, again, I'll talk about. But, you know, his blood supply, he has found a supply of blood to keep him sated so that he doesn't feed on the people of Collinsport. And then it gets cut off. And it's just brutal watching his resolve break down because he does not want to be a monster, but there is no other way to sate his bloodlust. And it builds up to this horrific scene where he attacks a woman and her boyfriend. God, it's so good. And then finally, he breaks down in the final episode because he does not want to be that monster. Again, in just a moment, I am going to talk more about Barnabas because really this miniseries is about Barnabas. And I'll talk about that in a moment because it's about what the miniseries is building up to. But that brings us to the standout of this cast, the best performance. I'm saving the best for last here. So Bloodline brought back a major character. Usually the Dark Shadows audio dramas tend to skirt around some of these major characters, either because the actors are unavailable, they don't want to come back, which was Jonathan Frid's case, which is why they recast Barnabas, or, you know, the actors are no longer with us, which this is, I imagine, why they haven't done Roger and Elizabeth, which on one hand, I get, you know, respecting the series and respecting the actors, but on the other hand, I'm just like, it's a soap opera. Soap operas recast characters all the time. Just recast them. Like, I will admit, I am kind of miffed that when Big Finish started doing the Dark Shadows audio dramas and they recast Andrew Collins to play Barnabas, they came up with this plot line that his spirit had left his body and was currently inhabiting a different body. It's like, Jonathan Frid didn't want to come back at the time. He gave you his blessing to recast the role. Just recast it. You know, it's like, and I'm sure fans of Dark Shadows would understand. And, you know, again, nature of soap opera. Heck, in the soap opera itself, characters were recast. Like Sam Evans, Maggie's father, was recast. What is his name? Matthew Morgan, the Collinwood groundskeeper, and sort of Elizabeth's manservant was recast. You know, it's like, you can do it without an explanation. That's the nature of the soap opera. This is a tangent I'm getting away from. But anyway, so usually in the past, with some of these characters, Big Finish would make a passing mention to them. Again, like I said, this audio mentions Victoria Winters. Roger and Elizabeth get a mention here or there. Or these characters would only show up in the audiobooks, because then they are being played, like every other role, by the narrator. But finally, the thing I've been building up to, we have a major character here. Because Bloodline brings back Dr. Julia Hoffman. Of course, Grayson Hall is no longer with us, having passed away in the 1980s. So she is played by Julie Newmar, Catwoman herself. Now, when I first heard this news, I was ecstatic. I love the original Batman show. Julie Newmar is my favorite Catwoman in that show. And I'm always kind of shocked when Big Finish gets a bit of a bigger name. And so, yeah, I was hyped for this, and she does not disappoint. Like I said, Julie Newmar as Julia is the standout performance of this entire miniseries. And just on her merits alone, I'd recommend it. I can't entirely recommend it because Bloodline is really lore and continuity heavy, and you need the context of previous audios and maybe even the show to be able to follow along with it, which is another thing. Again, only 2 criticisms. 1, the front half is a little unfocused. 2, I can't recommend it as is. But yeah, God, Julie Newmar is fantastic. She is still stellar, even after all this time. Oh, shoot, I forgot one. I'm sorry. There is one more member of the cast I want to single out and praise. Wallace Hammond. Wallace Hammond has a couple different roles in this miniseries. He plays Cody Hill, Harry's boyfriend. He plays Cody's father, Richard Hill, and then he plays one of their ancestors. I am forgetting their name. But all three really show Hammond's very broad range, and especially when he plays the ancestor who Jackie has a run-in with, he's really creepy. And also it just helps that Wallace Hammond's voice is really sexy. But yeah, so let's talk about what this series is building up to. Because during the confrontation, which takes place entirely in episode 13, for the most part, until the ending, until after the climax when things have to start getting resolved, episode 13 nearly takes place entirely between Barnabas and Julia. And Andrew Collins and Julie Newmar are fantastic playing off each other. They've been playing off each other all series. They've wonderfully recreate Jonathan Frid and Grayson Hall's chemistry. And just as they finally figure out what's been going on, that episode is, again, just stellar. But now let's kind of talk about what this miniseries is doing. Because the purpose of Bloodline is to end Barnabas's story. Now, we have to backtrack a little bit to kind of talk about this and get to where we're going. So, some time ago, for an anniversary, I should have done research and written this down to share, but I'm sorry, I didn't. A bunch of the cast members of Dark Shadows got together and sort of made an unofficial audio drama. This was independently made and is in no way associated with Big Finish. It was called Return to Collinwood. The premise of Return to Collinwood, real quick, is that set several years, I think a couple of decades after the end of the series, the Collins family gathers together to read the will of Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, who had just passed away. And in that series, and in that audio, we have several plot developments that have picked up, again, from the end of the series. So, one of the ones is that Quentin Collins and Maggie Evans are a couple now. The witch Angelique Bouchard is dead and has been dead for some time. Willie Loomis runs the Blue Whale and is in a relationship with Jessica Griffin. In fact, Jessica Griffin was created in Return to Collinwood. David has grown up to become an archaeologist, and he is unable to show up for the reading of Elizabeth's will, but a colleague shows up with a letter and says he is missing. Anyway, over the course of Return to Collinwood, several things happen, like Angelique is resurrected from the dead. And so this gets me to, and Willie also mentions that Barnabas and Julia are traveling the world, and in fact, the last time he heard from them, they were in Hong Kong. So now, let's get to what I'm setting up with this. Again, in the only bit of behind the scenes Big Finish has ever done for Dark Shadows, the documentary A Legend Reborn. The producers of the Dark Shadows audios said they are treating Return to Collinwood as the series finale. So basically, the audios, except for the ones that take place across the timeline, like ones that follow the Reverend Trask or Josette Dupre, the audios take place between the end of the TV show and Return to Collinwood. And you can kind of see that the miniseries have been building up to Return to Collinwood. So, for example, like I said, Angelique has been dead and she is resurrected in Return to Collinwood. One of the things that happened in Bloodlust was Angelique dying. And similarly here, David first starts getting the idea to become an archaeologist, but also more importantly, Barnabas is restored to his body and he and Julia leave to travel the world. So, and also it's doing in soap opera thing, long-running soap opera. So the old legacy characters start to leave. The Gap, they stop being regulars. They start becoming guest roles. Their appearances become less and less frequent as a new generation, a new cast begins to take over. Yeah, I just have nothing more to say. I'm kind of rambling, honestly. Just Bloodline is my favorite Big Finish audio. Have you heard Dark Shadows Bloodline? What are your thoughts? Start a conversation in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below you will find the link to my socials where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.